And so I do think Bitcoin will decouple and it'll become more like the digital gold. So this
Mm,
is the gold chart we see before us. But I do think that at some point you do see this change where Bitcoin has been historically that risk asset. It goes down when markets go down. I eventually think it's going to switch into more of a gold where it goes up when things are scary.
yeah.
Now this is the gold chart, and what's amazing about the gold chart is number one, it's still the best performing asset between Bitcoin and the stock market for the year. I think it's down about 4% or 5% on the year. But basically, look at this trend line: pivot high, pivot high, pivot high. We broke out. We tested this line again. Now we're testing it again. I think gold's a buy here. I think you're above
Yeah.
this line. I think you're going to start to head up. You could even be forming maybe an inverse head and shoulders here if we start to trade up. And again, I like gold here. I think it's a good play. It tells me that the dollar may be topping out. And by the way, that's another important point to make here. So think about this for everyone watching. Last Friday, Jerome Powell, probably the most hawkish he's been ever, right? I mean, it just crushed the market. NASDAQ was down 4% in a day. That's a
Yeah.
huge move. And everyone's like, oh, he's so hawkish. They're going to raise by 100 basis points. They're going to continue to raise. Well, go ask the bond market if that's true, because the bond
Mm,
market is the biggest, smartest investing market out there. And you know what yields did on Friday? Nothing.
hmm,
And what that tells me is the bond market is calling Jerome Powell's bluff. Look at the perfection of this. So if you connect this low to basically through here and through this low, and then you do a parallel line to this high, look at the high on the invasion. I mean, talk about the charts just dictating the max price and telling us that. You had the pullback, then the bounce, and then we've seen oil coming down. I still think oil comes down even more this year. In fact, if I throw up a trend line, this is my target on oil by year end, which is about $75 a barrel. So, you're looking at more downside here. Doesn't mean it can't bounce a little bit. But for me, if we get big enough bounces, I'm shorting oil. All right. You can't
right.
tell me that if the economy is slipping into a recession, and if we're going into recession, then Europe's going into recession. Then I mean, everyone's going into a recession. And you can't tell me that demand for oil is not going to fall. At some point, you're going to see some resolution with Russia as well. In addition, let's be fair, Russia's selling all their oil anyways to the open market. They're just selling it to China and India, right? So I mean, it's not like the US and Europe's like, oh, we won't buy their oil. Well, they're just selling it to someone else at that point for a discount. So it's all ending up on the open market. And again, to me, that spells economic slowdown. Oil still flowing out there. Oil's going to go down.
No way you could predict so much can happen in so little time to be able to, I mean, it threw me off.
Yeah.
It threw me off completely. Anyway,
Yeah.
regardless. So, what do you advise people to do? Let's talk about a few more cryptocurrencies. By the way, let's have a look at. We already had a look at Bitcoin. What about Ethereum? And what are your opinions about it going on with the merge? Now, I for me personally, it's useless to look at it with a dollar,
Yeah.
because just chart Bitcoin, the same thing. But what about if you chart it against Bitcoin? What's going on?
Yeah, so we could do Ethereum to Bitcoin. Sure, absolutely. Let's see what we got here. So, and again, I don't usually look at this chart. So this is going to be the first time I'm looking at this chart. I usually look at it in terms of dollars. But basically, what you can see is you basically got this almost pseudo triple top up here.
Hmm.
And now what's intriguing about that is that triple tops, the more you hit a level like this when it's a triple top, the more likely you get a breakout.
Yes.
So what this could tell us is that you might see Ethereum versus Bitcoin actually make a big move here. Maybe that coincides with the merge. We'll have to see, but it certainly is an interesting chart here. And you could even argue that you have this lower channel as well, right from here. So you have a kind of a pivot low here, or it has to break down, one or the other. And right now you're just hugging the lower end here on that chart. So you want to see Ethereum, you want to see Ripple hold the 32 cent, well, 31 cent level here. If it breaks down, that would be a negative. That could imply a negative judge ruling. If it's able to rally up and take out, then you got the positive side. So basically, a wedge pattern is telling you price has been consolidating. We know that from the chart here, and it tells you that at some point here, when the two lines merge together into a triangular point, you're going to get a big break one way or the other.
Are you an XRP man?
No, I'm not. I'm not. No, for me, it's too, as a trader, it's too risky to not when you have a decision that's going to either have a big pop or big drop based on one judge, that's too much for me to handle in terms of risk. I can't quantify that risk and make it make sense. And listen, sometimes I miss the run that way. but I'm
Right.
okay with that as a trader. It's like, you just have to analyze that risk reward.
All right, let's have a look at Terra Luna. Just kidding, bro. I wouldn't do that to you.
Yep, that was a crazy one, man. And by the way, I think before all is said and done, you're going to see more issues like that. There'll be
Yeah,
other cryptocurrencies that go that route. Whether or not as big as that one, that was a monster, but I do think it's not going to be the only one. Then it's an easier risk assessment to make.
got you. What about Hex for my Hexicans out there?
Hex, let's take a look here. See what we got on that one. I got some former lines on this one. Let's extend that out here. So we could extend that right to there. It looks like this one comes right down here. And wow, look at that. Let me erase this one.
That
So
is
basically, what you have is a beautiful triangle, and you're really right at the head here. It's very ripple-esque in that you're coming to this head. So you're either going to have a break lower or a breakout. And again, if you break out, you probably go back to about 7 cents. A breakdown, you go back to these recent lows around 2.7 cents, it looks like.
what do you think of those inverse hammers with the long tails, though?
Yeah, so that can show that again there were buyers there and then sellers kind of came out, but the fact is that it's touching the upper line and the lower line, so that's very, very normal. You have
Mm,
algorithms, you could have computers, whatever it may be, or just investors that were buying there and then selling here, and it just kind of creates this chop until you either get a breakout or a breakdown.
got you. Do you have a favorite altcoin you can show us?
Oh my goodness, a favorite one. Let's see here. I would keep an eye on, like, I mean, a Cardano. Let's take a look at
Oh
Cardano
yeah,
here.
Cardano.
Cardano had this little bit of an uptrend. It failed, but it's still holding here. It's starting to inch up. Not an amazing chart by any stretch, but you do have a level to trade against, which is pretty close, right around the 40-cent level. But again, I like charts that as we're seeing Bitcoin come down, getting close to its recent June lows, they're holding well above. It shows that relative strength. And if you get a bounce, those should be the ones that perform the best.
Got you. Okay, so a couple of questions for the people out there watching us today. By the way, if you haven't hit the like button the first time I asked, hit it now. Gareth is giving so much valuable information here. So, and check out his links. My question is twofold, two questions. What advice would you give traders, new traders and intermediate traders right now?
In a bear market, education is everything, right? In a bull market, you close your eyes, you throw a dart at the crypto board or at the stock board, and you probably make money. In this environment, it separates the people that don't know anything from the people that have actually learned things. So you got to start learning. You got to start being able to control your emotions. There's basically three keys to becoming a master trader, right? You have discipline, which you have to be disciplined, or the markets, especially bear markets, will eat you alive. Emotional control, which is emotions, goes into the same kind of thought process. You can't get excited at the highs, like on Bitcoin at 69,000. You have to remain objective. And then also you have to look at it and say, how do I use that knowledge about noticing the emotional state of investors that aren't me